Welcome to the Justice Room. Your life, your rights, your options. Experience and learn from discussions with legal professionals and other experts about the law, its challenges, and how it could affect you. Here at the Justice Room. Welcome to the Justice Room. Welcome to the Justice Room. This is your host, Jay Jacome, and today we've brought Mr. William Orth, attorney at law with law offices in Lake Mary and a satellite office in Orlando, to discuss with us. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
I'd like to discuss a little bit today about children and divorce cases.
Okay.
And how the different components, if you will, or how it affects them. Or what happens with children in divorce cases.
Okay.
So one question that I'd like to start with is children, and what's the interest of the child in a divorce case?
Well, in the state of Florida, if there's a minor child involved in a divorce or a paternity action or anything like that, the court is going to make a decision based upon what's in the best interest of a child. And if you take a look at the statutes, the Florida statutes, it's going to list certain factors.
Mm-hmm.
What's in the best interest of the child is going to have a big effect on the court determining how much time a parent gets to spend with a child. We used to call it visitation, now we call it time sharing.
Right.
Custody. We don't use the word custody anymore, but that's the way that that's the term that people understand.
Right. Now, when you say best interest of the child, are you saying there's different factors that could be involved in what's in the best interest of the child, such as
Sure.
The term or the length of visitation for somebody, maybe, or
Yeah,
the
and
days of visitation?
I'll tell you what the focus is more on, like, for instance, whether or not the parents foster a loving relationship between the child and the other parent.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a big difference. Whether or not a parent has historically exercised a lot of time sharing with the child or telephone contact with the child.
Mm-hmm.
To put it in easy to understand terms, it's hard to come into court and claim you want to spend more time with your child when you've been an absentee father for the last 4 years with no contact or very little contact. It's hard to come back into court and have credibility in an incredible way to say, well, I want 50-50.
Okay, but now what happens with those fathers? And there's a lot of families out there where you have traveling husbands,
Right.
or a traveling wife,
Right.
because of their employment,
Mm-hmm.
or for whatever reason, and just because that's their employment, does that mean that they are not going to be able to get the?
No, not necessarily. I mean, you're not necessarily gone. Most people aren't gone for an extended period of time in terms of like a month or 2 months or 3 weeks or whatever like that. So you might travel frequently for work, but when you're in town, you need to spend time with your child.
Mm-hmm.
The court's going to take a look at the amount of time that you spend with the child, but also, especially, and this is more important in terms of younger children, the frequency of contact with a child.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult for you as a parent in the court's eyes to have a meaningful relationship with your child if you've got a 4-year-old and you're seeing your child once every 4 months.
Okay.
Versus if you're seeing your child once every couple of weeks. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Okay. So they're basically going to take what's in when we're referring to the interest of the child based a little bit on your original livelihood. What was your overall involvement originally, and make that a condition or possibly a condition of.
Yeah. And that's where they're going to take a snapshot of your history of involvement with the child.
Okay. Now, I also wanted to talk a little bit about time sharing, known as custody.
Okay.
Okay. So, how is that involved in divorce cases for children in respect to the mother and the father?
Well, the court's going to make a decision, a time sharing. They're going to craft a parenting plan, which is what we call it now, which is basically a schedule of contact between the parent and the child.
How is a parenting plan actually? How does that work exactly?
Well, a parenting plan is, it involves more than contact. It involves decision-making and things like that, and that's a topic for another day necessarily, because there's a lot involved in that. But let's focus on contact. the time spent between a parent and a child. There's going to be potentially, in a lot of parenting plans, very specific schedule. You know, you hear people talk about, well, I'm an every other weekend dad, because that's kind of quote unquote normal. People think is normal.
Right.
There might actually be a schedule that says father, let's pick on dads, father shall have contact with the child every other weekend from Friday at 6 p.m. till Sunday at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Or the flip side, it might say mom will have contact with the children every other weekend from 6 p.m. on Friday till 6 p.m. on Sunday.
Okay.
So it'll be very, very specific to give the people a schedule, but also if you can't agree, you've got something to fall back on.